Welcome, friends. Today we have on the show Pastor Jackson Lahmeyer. Pastor Jackson is the lead pastor in the Sheraton Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He is the founder of Pastors for Trump, and he has been a featured speaker in Clay Clark's Reawaken America tour. Welcome, Pastor Jackson.
Well, hey, thank you so much for having me on. It's a real honor.
It's a pleasure to have you here. What inspired you to start this organization, Pastors for Trump?
That's a great question. And the answer really is because you'll notice in the mainstream media, they've tried to create this narrative ever since Donald Trump announced that he was going to run for president in 2024, that evangelicals are abandoning Donald Trump. You know, you see that all over the headlines, right? And there is some truth in the sense of there are some prominent evangelical leaders that have said they're not going to endorse anybody in the Republican primary. However, that does not mean that Donald Trump is losing support among evangelicals. 8 out of 10 evangelicals supported him in 2016 as well as 2020. I think he's going to have even greater support in 2024. And so, you hear that. And so I just said, well, let's form an organization to prove otherwise. And so we have pastors in all 50 states that are committed to mobilizing the evangelical voting bloc. Now, you have to realize the evangelical voting bloc is the largest voting bloc in the United States of America. The problem with evangelicals is not trying to convince them to vote for a Republican, because the value system, it's impossible for an evangelical to vote for a Democrat. The value system does not.
Especially in these days.
Oh, yeah. Now, a Democrat during the 1960s, like a JFK or so, different story. We're not talking about that. We're talking about modern, liberal, progressive Democrat. The value system doesn't align. So convincing an evangelical to vote for a Republican over a Democrat, that's easy. The issue becomes, how do you get evangelicals to actually turn out and vote? Because our voter turnout is dismal. I mean, it's dismal. So how do you do that? You do that through mobilizing pastors. Christians listen to their pastors. And if their pastor stands up from behind the pulpit and says, get out and vote what you believe, we'll have mass voter turnout. And that's what we need in 2024. So that's where our efforts are going into mobilizing pastors. But it's not just limited to pastors. Pastors for Trump holds a monthly prayer gathering that anybody is welcome to join. It's a national prayer call. And so I'd just encourage your listeners, they can go to pastorsfortrump.com and they can register for those prayer calls, because we believe there's still power in prayer. Even in 2023,
Absolutely.
There's still power in prayer.
That's our weapon, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a spiritual war when you look at it. It's gotten so... Have you ever seen polarization like this?
No. So it's a very clear cut. This is not like Republicans versus Democrats. This is good versus evil. This is
absolutely
godless globalists versus what the media wants to label people like us as Christian nationals, right? Christian nationalism and all that kind of stuff. But we just recognize that we begin with prayer. We don't end with prayer, but we begin with prayer, because in prayer, we're communicating to the Lord, and he communicates to us with creative and innovative solutions to solve the problems that we face. I mean, God's not going to wave a magical wand over the country and then boom.
We have to do it. We have to get involved.
That's not how God operates. God uses people to solve problems, just like the enemy uses people to create problems. And so we have to be a part of the solution using our time, our talent, our treasure, but we need the wisdom of the Lord. So we pray. We begin with prayer. And to make America great again, I believe we first have to make America godly again. And so I would encourage your listeners, go to pastorsfortrump.com, register and join us every month to pray.
And when is that next prayer call?
It'll be next month. We haven't released the date yet. We always have a special speaker that comes on. The prayer call in February was Mr. Roger Stone, and we'll have a very, very exciting speaker to announce here shortly for the March prayer call.
Great. And this is like a Zoom type?
So there's many facets of people, how they can engage. There is the prayer call, like conference call, where they can log in and listen to it. They can actually watch it live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, literally every platform. So everyone's
Okay.
able to get involved.
So you're broadcasting
It's
this.
broadcasted. Yeah,
Right.
it's broadcasted
Right.
live on many different platforms.
Great. For people who may not be on board, why Trump?
Well, that's a great question. And it's actually a very easy question to answer. Donald Trump was the most pro-Christian president in our lifetime. You got to think about what he did during his first 4 years. He nominated 3 Supreme Court justices that flipped Roe v. Wade and sent it back to the states, which a lot of people never thought was actually going to happen. You know, we were pro-lifers, but we never actually thought that it
We
would.
thought that was etched in stone, probably.
Right,
Especially with all the resistance.
Exactly. And so thanks to Donald Trump, that got reversed. Then you have the Abraham Accords that he struck. And you got to remember, everyone told us that the Abraham Accords was going to do what? Start World War III. It did actually the exact opposite. It brought some peace to the Middle East, which is highly, highly hard to do. And then
volatile area.
President Trump doesn't get a lot of credit for is the fact that he moved the embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Now, every president from Clinton to Bush to Obama, they all promised to move the embassy to Jerusalem. None of them did it. Donald Trump is the only one who made that move. And that's a very significant move because here's why. By moving our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, what we just said on a geopolitical front is we recognize Jerusalem as the capital city of Israel. That's a huge statement to make. And Trump made that statement. Now, that also was supposed to do what? Spark World War III. It did not. It did the opposite. And so under President Trump, we had no new foreign wars. We had the greatest economy we have experienced in our lifetime until the pandemic was unleashed upon us. So I think it's a pretty simple why Trump. It's actually not that complicated. And the Bible tells us that when the wicked rule, the people groan. Right now, we've got a lot of wicked people ruling and Americans are groaning. But when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. And so we need a righteous leader in office. President Trump is not perfect. All right, let's make that very clear. He is not perfect. He is a flawed man, just like me and just like everybody else who is listening. But at least President Trump is no hypocrite. You notice how Republican politicians, they're like the greatest Christians ever to live, when in reality, they're the furthest thing from it. Donald Trump is no hypocrite. He doesn't try to paint himself to be something he is not. And I actually respect that. And I honor that because too many times hypocrisy is the greatest downfall of Republican politicians. And so authenticity is attractive to me. And I appreciate Donald Trump's authenticity.
Yeah, I agree. Explain to us why the moving of the embassy, why is this important to Christians, to Jerusalem?
Well, because as biblical Christians, we recognize the importance of the nation of Israel, past, present, and future. So these are God's chosen people. Now, they're the apple of God's eye. God loves the nation of Israel. He hand-selected Abraham, and through Abraham, God made a promise. I'm going to bless those who bless your seed, and I'm going to curse those who curse your seed. So it's a very simple thing. I'd rather have God's blessing than God's cursing on my life and on our nation. Every nation that comes against the tiny little state of Israel gets annihilated off the face of the planet. I mean, you're talking about some of the greatest empires. They are now boneyards. They're boneyards because they went after the nation of Israel. And you can just go through the list of the Egyptian Empire, the Assyrian Empire, the Babylonian Empire. You have the Persian Empire, the Grecian Empire, the Roman Empire, Nazi Germany. All of those nations are in the boneyards of empires. But you know who is still standing? The tiny little country of Israel, which is a little smaller than the state of New Jersey. So you have to just look back historically and say, all right, there's something there. And so from a biblical standpoint, we recognize that we are to bless the nation of Israel. Does that mean the Israelis are perfect? Does that mean the nation of Israel is perfect? Not at all. But we bless the nation of Israel. And as a country, we have been blessed because we have fought for Israel. You have to recognize right after World War II, we were the first country to recognize Israel as a sovereign state, and the blessing of the Lord flowed. And so we need to continue to support the nation of Israel.
For Christians, it is the Holy Land, right?
Yeah.
You talked about the pandemic, how it was sprung on us, and you signed, if I'm correct, you signed 55,000 exemption letters. Is that correct?
Well, we're over 60,000 now.
Over 60,000 now.
So I started September the 13th, 2021, right after former Vice President Joe Biden said, if you don't take the jab, you will lose your job. And I actually just started signing for people in my church in Tulsa and people that they were connected with. Hey, your pastor won't do it, but my pastor will help you. And what happened was the Washington Post, which is total trash, but the Washington Post ran a hit piece on me.
I saw that. I saw that this morning.
Yeah, they ran a hit piece on me
about
signing exemptions and things like that because they called me, I think, a grifter or something like that. And so basically, what it was I was signing exemption for the members of our church. And so they did this hit piece. And all of a sudden, though, because of the hit piece, when you would type in COVID-19 religious exemption on Google, do you know who the first person to pop up was? This guy right here. So thanks to the Washington Post, we helped save thousands of jobs all across the country because of the Washington Post. Think about that. I was just signing up for people.
Amazing. It backfired.
It totally backfired on them because we were able to help. Over 60,000.
That's a lot of people. You must hold the record, right? That's
I'm pretty sure I should go down in the Guinness Book of World Records for COVID-19 exemption.
And that's a beautiful thing because nobody should have this forced upon them.
Not at all. Not at all. And so we gave resources and all kinds of things to the people. And if they needed legal help, we really had a robust system that we invented on the fly. Here's the exemption, get bulletproof, airtight. Here is the medical information that you need to know about it. And then here are the legal ways that you can fight if they don't accept the exemption. And so, we really put a lot of effort into that. It became like a full-time job. Every morning, this was the first thing that we did was we'd go because we realized for people, this was their livelihood. You're talking about losing your job. This is not a small little minor thing that we were doing, and we recognized it. So we did the best we could. And we're still signing that. You wouldn't believe how many college student and high school students that we are signing exemptions for. It's not so much working adults now because most companies are not enforcing that, but universities and public schools still are. And so we sign a ton for college students and high school students, which is amazing to me that young, healthy, college age and high school students are being required. I had a young woman drive to my church on Sunday, several hours away. She was an online student in high school. So she didn't even attend high school in person. But in order to enroll for online classes, she had to be vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine. And, so we signed her exemption to help her out. And so that's what we've done. And, if people need an exemption, then go to my website, jacksonlahmeyer.com. They can download it there. We always encourage people, go to your pastor first. All right. So download the exemption, go to your pastor, have your pastor sign it. But if he or she refuses to sign the exemption, then I'm more than willing to help and sign it. Like I said, we've done over 60,000.
Fantastic. Great work. Which brings up the next thing with all of this. People seem to be more interested in the book of Revelation than ever before, especially chapter 13, dealing with the mark of the beast and the Antichrist. How does this all tie in?
What a beautiful question. It's so funny you bring that up because I am in a series over the book of Revelation at Sheridan Church, and every Wednesday night. So it's like our midweek Bible study. So, Sunday mornings, we're in the book of Genesis, and those are, the bigger worship services, right? But on Wednesday night, it's more of a Bible study. We're going through the book of Revelation, verse by verse, chapter by chapter. So you can imagine this is part 20 of our series, and we're in chapter 13. So last night I addressed the false prophet and the image of the beast. The week before, it was the Antichrist and the mark of the beast. And so I would encourage people, they can go to YouTube and go to Sheridan.church, and I've got some extensive teaching on what that is and how that plays in today. So we recognize a couple of things with the Antichrist, false prophet, mark of the beast, image of the beast, is that we're not there yet. So we're not there yet. But what we are in is what I would call the foundational pillars being set for this to be unleashed on humankind. So people are wondering, have I accidentally taken the mark of the beast? No, you have not accidentally taken the mark of the beast. Believers will know what the mark of the beast is because they will refuse it and they will lose their lives for it. So nobody is accidentally, because, every generation knows what the mark of the beast is. The mark of the beast was barcodes. Well, it turned out barcodes weren't the mark of the beast. Then the mark of the beast, you remember the little chip that they put on your credit card? People said that was the mark of the beast. That's not the mark of the beast. Every generation knows who the Antichrist is. Christians were thoroughly convinced Adolf Hitler was the Antichrist. He was not the Antichrist. He was an Antichrist, though, but he wasn't the Antichrist. You may remember Ronald Wilson Reagan was the Antichrist because Ronald is 6 letters, Wilson is 6 letters, Reagan is 6 letters. And when you put that together, what do you have? 6, 6, 6, and he's the most powerful person on the face of the planet. So you have to be cautious. You have to be cautious because every generation believes they know who the Antichrist is, what the mark of the beast is. Television was supposedly the image of the beast because through that image, it could speak. So we just have to be cautious. We truly don't know, but we can definitely see the formation, because when you're talking about not being allowed to buy or to sell without the mark, you can start seeing some of these things take place, that they can control the economy through what we call the CBDC in the sense of the digital currency. And if you don't worship the beast, then you don't have the mark of the beast. If you don't have the mark of the beast, you can't buy or sell. And if you can't buy or sell, you don't live. So you can see things coming together, a one world government, a one world religion instituted by a false prophet. And, you see those coexist bumper stickers. That's the direction we're headed. We're headed into this one world religion. And so believers, though, our focus is not on the coming of the Antichrist. So many of us can get so caught up in looking for the coming of the Antichrist. That's not where our focus is. Our focus is on the return of the Christ. That's where our focus is. We want to keep our focus on the truth, not trying to identify non-truth, because when you're searching for counterfeit, you'll get all kinds of confused. Look for the real deal and you'll never be deceived by the counterfeit.
Yeah, focus on the positive. Yeah, because we have plenty of that. We have plenty of that. When you spoke, I know you spoke in 2021 at Clay's Reawaken America tour. At the time, it was called the Reopen America tour. I believe I'm correct in saying. And you did not close down your church.
No, we didn't. Clay is a good friend of mine. Him and Vanessa are actually members of the church I pastor here in Tulsa.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so their family attends Sheridan. Mm-hmm. And we didn't close down. We fought the city on that. That was a crazy time because I never would have thought that the city would have tried shutting down our church. That was just, we're Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're the buckle of the Bible Belt. We don't do things like that here, right?
Right.
But that happened. And then we fought against the mask mandate. They threatened to shut our facility down for health violations. So you know how you can condemn a building for health violations? Well, they were threatening to condemn our church building because we were a super spreader in the city of Tulsa. Whenever, Home Depot across the street was open and Home Depot was running more people every day through their building than we were on Sunday morning. You got to think about that. We were running Sunday morning and Wednesday night. Home Depot directly across the street from our church is open Monday through Monday all day. And they're running, huge volume of people through there. Yeah. So to me, that didn't make any sense. How come Home Depot can stay wide open? They're directly across the street from us. We do service Sunday morning and Wednesday night. I didn't understand that. So we fought back. I threatened to sue the city over it, and they backed off very quickly. So that was one of the things. Yeah, I don't think they wanted to get in a lawsuit with a church because that doesn't look good in an election year. And so we pushed back and we won. We won.
Great. Yeah, apparently there were some churches in California that actually won their lawsuits.
Yes.
So, yeah, this was really an attack on the churches, it seems.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, this was a total attack on the church. You got to think about it. It is, you will shut your doors, you will go online, and then when we get you online, we will censor what you say.
Yeah.
Now, that was the whole move. They didn't tell us that when we got online, they would start flagging us for certain things we would preach, or certain things we would teach. So it was a very smart plan on their end.
And none of it was legal. None of it was constitutional. It was just
so we
based
fought
on
back. And we're not some great hero or anything like that. We just pushed back. We fought back. And thankfully, we won those battles. Now, we're still in different battles today, but those battles we won.
Now, I know Clay was running a kind of a church thing out of his building. Were you involved with that as well?
Yeah, so Clay has it's a gathering that was taking place on Monday nights during the pandemic. And so, I would occasionally go and speak to people and just encourage them. And then now they run that same thing on Thursday nights. And so it's still going. It's a gathering of people. It's called the Remnant. And so it's a beautiful thing. It's people from all different churches coming together on that night. And just, like-minded people. And it's good to be around like-minded people.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Clay's done great work in these past few years. And you ran for Senate in Oklahoma. Well, what was that like?
I had the time of my life. I never saw myself doing that, if that makes sense. That's a big thing to do.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I'm so glad I did it. General Michael Flynn called me and said, "You're going to run." And I said, "Yes, sir." And so we flew the general into Tulsa. And that's how the Reawaken America tour got birthed, was through the launching of my campaign, was because Flynn called me, said, "You're going to run." I said, "Well, I need your help." He said, "I'll fly to Tulsa." So we did a launch at Clay Clark's office. And then that got birthed the following month, the Reawaken, at that time, Reopen America. And so it's a beautiful thing to look at. I had no idea the ripple effect of simply saying yes to running for the U.S. Senate.
So General Flynn called you.
General Flynn called me.
How did he know about you?
I was doing an interview on a podcast that Clay Clark said, "I need you to do an interview with Ann Vanderstill." Now, at the time, I had no idea who Ann Vanderstill was. And so Clay says, "Come over to my house. You're going to do a podcast." And on the podcast, I mentioned I might run for the U.S. Senate. General Flynn is watching the podcast live. None of us know it. The general gets in touch with Ann, says, "Hey, I'd like this guy's number." She gives him my number. He calls me. We have a 2-hour conversation. And at the end, he tells me, because I said, "I don't know if I'm going to run or not." He said, "No, you're going to run." And so I said, "Yes, sir." That's how it all happened.
That's amazing. What an amazing story.
And then from there, the Reopen America tour, the Reawaken America tour. So you can see just a simple little podcast interview that Clay Clark and I were on sparked something that has really helped a whole lot of people.
And that's why this is so important, right? We really need to make our voices heard.
Absolutely.
Because we are really up against a leviathan, with the mainstream media, big tech. It's all captured. So Clay met General Flynn through you then?
Yeah, it was the launching of my campaign at Clay's office. We did the press conference at Clay's office, and then we did a rally that night at Clay's office with General Flynn. And so, we all just got connected, and it was a beautiful thing. I remember when I went to go pick up the general from the airport, I said, "Man, I really hope this is the real General Michael Flynn," because I've only talked to him on the phone, and I'm hoping I'm not getting fooled here. But it was the real general.
Wow. What an endorsement.
Yeah.
And then you were also endorsed by Sebastian Gorka, Roger Stone.
Mayor Rudy Giuliani, some great people came alongside and helped. It was a great thing. We didn't win the race, but we won. I can look at the ripple effects. We won by saying yes and getting into the fight. And I learned so much. I had the time of my life doing it.
A lot of times it's the process that's most important, right?
Yes.
And it brought people together. I volunteered for Ian Smith's campaign last spring, and that was probably a similar situation up against an established politician, which is really difficult because of the money mainly, right?
Right.
But
yeah, anytime you're getting outspent 25-1, that's hard to get your message out when your opponent's message is being broadcast and amplified that much more than yours.
Yeah. But what it did is it brought people together. It was a great experience just for that alone. The community of people, which, like you said, like-minded people. And you're out there working for, we need prayer and works, right? It's about becoming active. So people can contact you. How can you?
So they can go to pastorsfortrump.com, register for the monthly prayer calls, or they go to jacksonlahmeyer.com and they can get a COVID-19 religious exemption form. So pastorsfortrump.com, jacksonlahmeyer.com, or on YouTube, they can just literally search Sheridan Church and they can watch our series over the book of Revelation. So those are kind of the three options.
Well, thanks a lot, Pastor Jackson. It was a pleasure having you here today.
Absolutely.
And great work.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for what you're doing as well. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.